One thing that's different between receivers and running backs is wide receivers may still get the volume. Wide receivers may still have the role. Wide receivers may be doing great overall, but naturally their production is still going to be extremely volatile week to week. And if you have a 2-week stretch where a wide receiver's down, not really producing, people may actually get worried when they have no reason to. Now, our first guy fits this mold, but he's not actually a receiver. He is a tight end. I'm sorry we had to sneak one in. I wanted to talk about George Kittle a little bit more in depth. Now, Kittle is going to play tonight, so honestly, we probably should not be making this video now because we may look like an idiot 6 hours from now. But nonetheless, if we are looking at George Kittle, he's struggled through the first 2 weeks, ladies and gentlemen. George Kittle has had 3 receptions week 1, 3 receptions week 2. I mean, he's had fewer than 50 total yards so far through the start of the season. And with George Kittle, this is not what you have come to expect. With Kittle, this is a wide receiver that if you look at back over the past 3 years, he has been a top 5 option from a points per game perspective every single season. 2020, tight end 3. 2021, tight end 4. 2022, the tight end 2 from that points per game perspective. But I do want to remind everybody, George Kittle is not a consistent producer. George Kittle is going to be one of those wide receivers that, yeah, he may give you a week where he only has 3 receptions and 30 receiving yards. And then the following week, you may see 8 receptions and 150 receiving yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. I don't know how many times we've seen this exact same thing play out before. Just kidding. I actually do know. Because what I wanted to do is I wanted to go back and see in 2022 when he was the tight end 2 from a points per game perspective. See in 2021 when he was the tight end 4 from a points per game perspective. And see where this volatility was. How many 2-week stretches did George Kittle have with fewer than 60 total receiving yards in those 2 weeks? Well, we counted it out, and if you include the playoffs, in 2022, you had 5 stretches of 2 weeks where George Kittle did not have 60 receiving yards or more in those combined weeks. In 2021, you had 4 stretches where in those 2 weeks, George Kittle did not hit 60 total receiving yards. So this is nothing new for George Kittle. So fundamentally, we have to ask ourselves, okay, well, is anything different here? Yeah, you have CMC, and honestly, CMC will probably go through and he'll probably take work from George Kittle, which is why I'm not ranking George Kittle as the tight end 2, the tight end 3, as we've seen him be in years past. Instead, I have George Kittle more so around the tight end 5, tight end 6, which I still think is a fine price point to go get him. But outside of that, you really have no changes. I mean, yes, you have Brock Purdy in here, but if you look at the splits with and without Brock Purdy, George Kittle was way better at the end of last season with Brock Purdy in comparison to what he was with Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo. Purdy is a good thing for George Kittle. And this past week, George Kittle went out there and he played 55 snaps. He ran 26 routes. I mean, if you look at other players, Brandon Ayuk did deal with the shoulder injury. Can't really look at his snap count. Brandon Ayuk was at 30. Deebo Samuel was at 51. But George Kittle is at the very top of this team with the overall snaps as well as the overall routes that he is running. So I'm looking at Kittle and I'm going to come away with the conclusion that this is just natural volatility. Now, I'm completely fine if you want to have him down at, say, tight end 5. Obviously, you'd rather have Kelsey, Andrews, Hawkinson. The Waller range is kind of up to you. You can put Waller ahead of him, but please don't go out there and think George Kittle slides down to being a low-end tight end 1 this season just because he's had some off weeks. Now, before we leave this game, of course, I want to remind y'all, please make sure you are taking advantage of the Daniel Jones special pick'em for tonight. More than less than half a total yard against the 49ers. Use promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy, you are going to get that special pick'em. Check out all these pick'ems as well. With promo code FLOCK, you're also going to be getting our updated rest of season rankings and a 100% deposit match up to $200. You find that link in the description. Find it in the comment section. But going over to our next wide receiver, he is a wide receiver that I thought you wouldn't be able to buy low on. I honestly did not expect this many people to be panicking on Jamar Chase. But I'm seeing people go out there and send Amon-Ra St. Brown for Jamar Chase. I'm seeing people go and send Puka and a running back 2 and go get Jamar Chase. And honestly, I do want to just put it out there. If you can buy low on Jamar Chase, you buy low on Jamar Chase. I'm a little bit worried about the Burrow injury in the short term. If you look at what Las Vegas sportsbooks are telling us for this next week, they did move the Cincinnati Bengals down to only being 2.5-point favorites. And it does look like this short-term injury should continue to linger for Joe Burrow. But in the long term, I have no hesitation, and I still view Chase as a top 5 wide receiver in fantasy. He's had 17 targets through the first 2 weeks. And in the long term, why I'm not worried is if you go and look at Las Vegas sportsbooks, they currently have the over-under on wins for the Cincinnati Bengals at 9.5 this next season. Keep in mind, the Bengals only have 15 games the rest of the year here. So they're essentially projecting, okay, do you think the Bengals go 10-5? Do you think the Bengals go 9-6? Do you think that they go maybe worst case scenario 8-7? Nonetheless, Vegas still projecting this to be a good football team, a good offense. I think in the long term, the Burrow injury in this offense should be fine. This will be the last bona fide stud that we talk about, so please don't roll your eyes on me. A.J. Brown, I just want to put it out there. Don't panic. I understand. Yes, through the first 2 weeks, Devonta Smith has been the guy. Devonta Smith had the long touchdown reception on Thursday night. Everybody's really excited about him. A.J. Brown, nothing's changed. Okay, with A.J. Brown, he's had 16 targets through the first 2 weeks. He's had 108 receiving yards, no receiving touchdown, but similar to Kittle, the reason we're putting him on here is this is a wide receiver that we've seen, especially in this Eagles offense, be very volatile on a week-to-week perspective, but he is going to give you those elite level spike weeks. We go to A.J. Brown over the past 3 seasons. He has averaged exactly 8 targets per game. That's the same thing we've seen through the first 2 weeks at this point, ladies and gentlemen. Really don't think that we need to be worried. Some weeks you're going to have Devonta Smith getting his. Other weeks you're going to have A.J. Brown getting his. I just want to reiterate, please do not go out there and sell A.J. Brown for some random wide receiver 2 that had a spike week like Mike Evans. You'd still rather have A.J. Brown here. Now, going over to our next guy who's on a buy low video for us last week, and we're going to be doubling down. Go get Christian Watson if you can. With Watson, loved him coming into the season for a couple different reasons. This was a wide receiver that in the second half of the year, weeks 10 through 18, was at the very top of fantasy football scoring, only behind Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Devontae Adams, Keenan, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Devonta Smith, and Chris Godwin. Christian Watson was at the very top here, ladies and gentlemen. And this was fueled off of his insane touchdown rate, which I 100% think comes back down to earth. You're looking at Christian Watson with the touchdown rate of 10.61% as a rookie. This is reminiscent of what you had with like Chase Claypool back as a rookie as well. And obviously not excited about Claypool, obviously. I mean, we do not want Christian Watson to turn into him. And what makes Christian Watson different in my mind is going to be his efficiency. Not with his touchdowns, but with his yards per route run. You go back to last season, the only wide receivers ahead of Christian Watson from a yards per route run basis were Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, A.J. Brown, Jalen Waddle, and Cooper Kupp. That's it. So if Christian Watson's a top 5 wide receiver in yards per route run, essentially, and he was an elite producer down the stretch, the only question we had going into the season is Jordan Love any good? I didn't know how to answer this. I thought Jordan Love had upside, but in reality, it was a complete question mark, and we really hadn't had the chance to see Jordan Love before. But now if you're going to go through and see what Jordan Love's done through the first 2 weeks, Jordan Love, 6 passing touchdowns to 0 interceptions, and his weapons have been Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs, Luke Musgrave, Dontavian Wicks, and Samori Toure. I believe we said that correctly. Probably not. But nonetheless, Jordan Love's had nobody to go to. Christian Watson stepping into a team that really needs him, and this offense is still looking good. So I am really excited about when we get Christian Watson back. But now going over to our next guy, we are going to be looking at Jerry Jeudy. With Jeudy, yes, this past week, it was gross. He only had 5 targets. Marvin Mims demolished him. And with Jeudy, this is a wide receiver you have to remember. He had the hamstring injury that was so severe, he was carted off in training camp, and people thought Jerry Jeudy was going to be missing a significant amount of time this season. Now, with Jerry Jeudy, his first week back, honestly, you should have never expected him. I should have never expected him to be at 100% and to go out there and have some massive role. With Jeudy, he didn't even play a full slate of snaps. He only had 45 out of 66 potential snaps as if he was a committee RB. Makes sense for them to go through and limit Jerry Jeudy in some capacity. But going forward, I expect him, as he continues to get healthy, he is going to continue to expand his role in this Denver Broncos offense. And while I'm not a big Russ guy, I do think that ultimately at the end of the day, Russell Wilson's looked a lot better this season than he has previously. And this should be an extremely high scoring matchup this week for the Denver Broncos, where this may be your last opportunity to pick up Jerry Jeudy on the cheap. I would be valuing him as a low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3 would be a phenomenal price tag. Now, our next wide receiver, I do want to put a pretty big asterisk on. With Jackson Smith-Njigba, you are not buying him if you are 0-2. You are not buying him if you need production in your starting lineup right now, because I will tell you, you are not going to get any production from JSN. JSN, through the first 2 weeks, has only had 47 total receiving yards. He's only had 11 total targets. And with Jackson Smith-Njigba, he's probably not going to do anything for the rest of the month. Maybe he's not going to do anything for another 6 weeks. But what I'm trying to do at this point of the year, if I'm a 2-0 team where we're just looking down at our bench and I'm going, okay, yeah, we have Nico Collins on the bench who looks great. And obviously, we'd rather have Nico Collins in the short term over someone like Jackson Smith-Njigba. But I'm 2-0. I mean, I have a loaded starting lineup. I've dealt with no injuries. I'm just trying to think about one of these guys at the very bottom end of our bench that will hopefully give us upside for the long term. There, if we can go out and possibly pick up a player like Jackson Smith-Njigba, where we can say, yes, maybe the role's not there, where he's just regulated for slot duties at the beginning of the season. He only played 40 snaps this past week, which is deceiving because JSN was in and out of this game with a leg injury. Remember, he went to the tent. I was very scared about Jackson Smith-Njigba on Sunday, thinking this injury could have been serious. But if you take those snaps that are going to like Jake Bobo, Cody Thompson, you move those over to Jackson Smith-Njigba going forward. I think this is a wide receiver fully healthy as he continues to progress his rookie season. He could look similar to what Christian Watson was at the end of the year last year, and he could end up turning into a league-winning rookie wide receiver, which we're always looking for. Now, our last wide receiver I'll throw on, kind of a boring name. I get it. He's just the mid wide receiver 2. Chris Godwin, yes, I understand. This Bucs offense probably going to come back down to earth a bit. Yes, I understand. Mike Evans looks way better at this current moment. But just fundamentally, it's been 2 weeks. It's been a small sample. And if I'm going through and trying to project this out, does it make a lot of sense for Chris Godwin at 27 years old to be the guy that is all of a sudden declining in Tampa while Mike Evans is 30? No, doesn't really make sense. Now, by no means am I saying, oh, Mike Evans is 30. It's not going to be good. No, of course, I'm not saying that. I'm saying if Chris Godwin was the guy dominating at the beginning of the season, where the 30-year-old was starting a little slow, maybe there would be reasons to be concerned. But a 27-year-old going out there, I mean, after the wide receiver 16 season, now that we get to see that Baker Mayfield can support wide receiver production in fantasy, I'm just going to assume that this is a slow start. I'm going to assume that he's going to be fine going forward. He has averaged 7 targets per game through the first 2 weeks. I think we just need some bigger plays. I think that we just need some more time for this to play out with Chris Godwin over a larger sample. He's going to be fine. But I think that's all I have for you all in this video. Again, thank you so much for checking it out. If you enjoyed it, please go down there, drop a like, subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football. And of course, if you want to check out any of those pick'ems over on Underdog Fantasy, find that link in the description, find it in the comment section. Promo code FLOCK, you're going to get a 100% deposit match up to $100. Plus, you're going to be getting our rest of season 2023 fantasy football rankings and tiers. A Daniel Jones special pick'em, more than less than half a passing yard tonight. If you aren't able to take advantage of that by the game tonight, instead, you'll be getting a Lamar Jackson, more than less than half a passing yard against the Colts on Sunday. But yeah, that's all I have for you. Really do appreciate you. Really hope you have a great day. And I really hope we get to see you out with the live stream later tonight.